Well, despite a rain delay in the ninth inning, the Tigers take game one of a three-game set in Chicago. We'll talk about that and more all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Tuesday, August 12th, 2025. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen. Every single day, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is right around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today to get started and start planning for your futures bets now. Welcome in, welcome all. We're celebrating a win here today. The Tigers win by a score of 2-1 over the Chicago White Sox. You know, obviously the White Sox are not in a very good place organizationally at the present moment, but you will just always take a division win, right? I don't care if it's the White Sox or if it's, you know, a really good Royals or Guardians team last year, right? I just want to win games against our peers, win games against other teams in the AL Central, and that is what your Detroit Tigers did on Monday night, even in spite of a ninth inning rain delay, which you don't see too very often. You don't see a good old-fashioned ninth inning stoppage of play. Usually at that point, they're like, all right, we're just going to tough it out. Ninth inning rain delay. Almost an hour. They finish her off there and get the win, 69-51 on the season, while the White Sox fall to 43-76. First thought is that was not the prettiest of ball games. Certainly, with the, weather aside, or I guess weather included, it wasn't pretty optically in that regard. Wasn't the prettiest offensive performance either from a not very good White Sox pitching staff. But the Tigers pitching staff did well against a bad lineup. And look, again, I'm never going to be mad at doing what you are supposed to do against inferior opponents, inferior opposition. That's not a negative, right? I see all the time people go, oh, well, sure, they did well, but this team isn't very good. Fair. I'm not throwing a parade because of a Monday night rainy win in August against the 43-76 Chicago White Sox, but I'm also not going to be mad about it. A win is a win is a win. And this pitching staff specifically had a really rough weekend. I mean, we can just call it what it is. It was not very good against the Angels. And so for them to turn around and just have a solid evening, again, regardless of opponent, to just have, one run given up, I think kind of boosts the morale and kind of, recalibrates your pitching staff a little bit, which is nice. Torkelson, also awesome to see moments like that from him. Little doink off the foul pole for the go-ahead home run was that in the ninth inning? Yeah, before the rain delay, though. So, yeah, not a pretty win. And you hope that the next two games of this series can be a little bit smoother and a little bit more, little bit more comfortable in terms of how the Tigers perform against one of the worst teams in baseball. But like I said earlier, a win is a win is a win. Hopefully this team can get back to the point that they were at in the first half of the season, where they were winning games even when they didn't play their best baseball. That's something that I have reiterated a lot on this show over the last 4 years, is that the biggest, I probably shouldn't say biggest, that's probably hyperbolic, but a very big difference between a 500 team and a 90-plus win team, because that's not too many wins. You're talking 9-10 wins potentially, unless you start getting, 100, 105 win team, whatever. But one of the biggest differences is just Can you win when everything isn't going right? Can you win when your whole team is not firing on all cylinders? And they were so good at that in the first half of the season. And hopefully that is something they can get back to. But gotta win a ball game. Gotta do what you gotta do. What went right? The defense. I know it's a weird place to start, but I thought the defense in this ball game was actually pretty darn incredible. Wenceel Perez responsible for a lot of that, if not most of it. He had a great sliding, I guess you'd call it, play in right field, caught up to a ball that I thought almost certainly was going to drop, from my couch 2 states away. But I think that that was a fantastic play. One of the overlooked plays of this game is earlier in the ball game. Chicago, I think it Kyle Teal. Somebody rips a ball down to the right field line. And Wenceel Perez, it's not like hugging the line, but, down right field, and Wenceel's shifted over a little bit. He takes a great route, tracks the ball down on a couple of bounces, and gets it in so quick that the batter can't extend that single into a double. I think if almost anybody else is out there, if Kerry Carpenter's out there, he's probably standing on second base. So I think that is something that will certainly go overlooked, but that really impressed me in the moment as well. Colt Keith, I thought looked fine at third. He had the one bobble there in what was that, the 8th inning. But outside of that, he had a couple of really nice throws. For people like me that were concerned about the arm translating over to third base, it's really nice to see him. He short hopped it a little bit, but that's an easy scoop when there's barely any bounce on it as well. So no one's the wiser. I really thought that he looked solid there at third, and I think he's looked pretty solid at third really all season. And that's a huge weight off of this organization's shoulders. It kind of gives them a lot more flexibility going forward. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, outside of the Colt Keith bobble that didn't end up costing them, didn't even end up giving up a run off of it, I thought that this was a really solid game defensively, and I feel like I've been really critical of their defense lately. So I wanted to make sure I said that at the top of the program here. Let's talk about the bullpen, okay? We're going to go to a quick break, an early break, if you will, so that I can just talk about all the relievers at once. We'll do that right after this. First, though, got to talk to you all about our friends over at Open Phone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had a service emergency, like a burst pipe. If the first plumber you called didn't answer, did you wait around? No, you called the next one. That's why having a reliable business line is so important, and that's why you need Open Phone. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system that helps you streamline and scale customer communications, all from an app on your phone or computer. Did you juggle 2 phones maybe to keep business and personal calls separate? Well, Open Phone solved that instantly. Your whole team can share one number and respond to customers like a shared inbox, so there's no more, who's handling this or who's handling that. Open Phone is offering Locked On Tigers listeners 20% off of your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnMLB. That's openphone.com/LockedOnMLB. And if you have existing numbers with a different service, Open Phone will port them over for no extra charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. Also got to talk to y'all about our friends over at FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for the bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champion before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. Take a flyer on an MVP race. You can crown your champion in August or parlay your division winner dark horses. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bet now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate you all for tuning in. As always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. And we, of course, will be back tomorrow recapping Game 2 against the South Side. Today we're talking about this 2-1 victory over those same Whitecaps, in-game Whitecaps. I'm not going to cut it. The West Michigan Whitecaps, obviously. I have MLB Pipeline updated their 30 for 30, and so I read that and thought Whitecaps for whatever reason. The White Sox, rather. Let's talk about the bullpen in this win. Tyler Holton, 1 1/3 innings pitched, 1 hit, no runs, no walks, 1 strikeout. ERA back down to 3.79. I thought the usage and the deployment, I'll say, from AJ was wonderful and when to go to Holton. I also think that he was absolutely fantastic. And I think that cutter is just, I don't want to put, because he has, 5 or 6 pitches, I don't want to put his entire success or failure on one pitch in his vast repertoire. That being said, everything else kind of works off of the cutter. And if that pitch isn't working, that's when he's tended to struggle. And when it's on point, everything else doesn't have to be really perfect. It still works well because the cutter is established and is such a legitimate pitch, especially against lefties. So I think that was really what you saw in this game. Just the 1 strikeout. I only recorded 4 outs. Like, that's not a bad percentage, but I think the biggest thing is just the cutter's ability to get weak contact. He just continues to be a master in that regard. Kyle Finnegan, 1 inning of perfect baseball with 1 strikeout. He had a little bit of slippery command at certain times, but was facing some well below league average hitters and kind of got away with it. But really, that's I don't bring that up to be like, oh, he wasn't that good. He stinks or whatever. He has good enough stuff, and especially a good enough changeup, splitter, whatever you want to call it, where even when he doesn't have pinpoint command, he can still get swing and miss on that pitch. The whole repertoire is I was going to say is kind of hit or miss with whether he can consistently get whiffs on it. That pitch specifically, he kind of consistently can. And I think that's a positive, not a negative, obviously. Even if the command wasn't great in this ball game. And yeah, he has yet to allow an earned run since joining the Detroit Tigers. And his ERA in the season is now back under 4. It was pretty comfortably above 4 when the Tigers acquired him. Let's talk about the offense. Spencer freaking Torkelson, man. 2 for 4 with the big go-ahead home run in the 9th inning. Say what you will about Torkelson, okay? 244 average, 820 OPS. He's got 26 homers now on the season. At a minimum, even if you are still a big-time Torkelson hater, because I know those people still exist. I read my own comments. I'm on the internet, okay? I see still what some of the fan base's viewpoint of him is. At a minimum, the Tigers have received, finally, a right-handed bat who just absolutely crushes lefties that they can play every day. Obviously, you have Andy Ibanez kind of in that platoon role. Jahmai Jones has been there this year. But one of the big things we talked about at the end of last season and going into last winter was, okay, this team really needs to get better against lefties, and they really need a power right-handed bat. And I think that one of the bigger reasons as to why the offense has taken such a step forward is because Colt Keith is not playing first base like we all thought was going to happen going into the season. And Colt Keith's been freaking fantastic ever since the beginning of May. But I think that credit where credit is due, Torkelson being exactly what we asked for in what we asked this team to bring in this past winter, and at a bare minimum carving out that role for himself, I think has gone a long way. And this team has improved greatly against left-handed pitching, I think, in part to Torkelson's role on the team. So tip of the cap to Torek, obviously the big home run. Riley Green, he goes 1 for 4 with a strikeout. It's not the most insane stat line you'll ever see. Had a double to start off his day in the, the second inning. I thought the at-bats were a lot better, and I was really excited to talk about how the at-bats were a lot better. And then his fourth at-bat happened, and that kind of went out the window a little bit. But here we are. I still want to talk about it. I still wrote it down on my show sheet. Dylan Dingler, fantastic defense behind the plate. Also a really well-received ball game. I think that his pitch framing continues to be absolutely fantastic and grades out really well for a reason. He also got on base twice in this ball game, though, and that's something that only him and I believe Spencer Torkelson can say on this entire lineup in this ball game. So good for Dingler. He continues to be one of the more reliable and honestly valuable members of this Detroit Tigers position player group. He's been absolutely fantastic. We'll wrap up what went right with Chris Paddack. 5 2/3, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, and 4 strikeouts. Only 5 whiffs on the outing, but he was in the zone the whole game, which we obviously love, and that's one of the reasons why the Tigers brought him in. I thought the cutter for him as well was really nasty and was a really effective pitch. Didn't throw it too terribly often, but when he did, I thought it was good. He lacks swing and miss, and that is some of the reasons why he is inconsistent, but he is also consistently in the zone and on the edges. They showed a stat on the broadcast, so I want to give credit to FanDuel Sports Network, but he is among the leaders in baseball in percentage of pitches that are just on the black or on the edges of the strike zone. He gets into trouble when he, again, just kind of refuses to walk people, which is great. That's a positive. But that leads to an overcorrection sometimes, and the ball will leak over to the heart of the plate instead. And we see that then he gives up a lot of hard contact and gives up, damage, gives up the long ball. And that's something that he's done pretty consistently in his Tigers tenure and really ever since post-rookie year, Chris Paddack, in his major league career in general. So we've seen what happens when he does, the command does leak over to the heart of the plate, but I'm not going to be too upset with a final stat line that looked like that. He was an out away from 6 innings of 1-run ball. He missed spots. He left a couple of curveballs way too high in the zone. There was one specifically that should have gone 900 feet and instead went about 200. He also left a lot of changeups up in the zone. I think that a better lineup probably has his stat line looking a little bit different. But the White Sox lineup isn't very good, and he did enough to lock it down and only allow 1 earned run, and we will gladly take that. Not going to complain. Okay, let's talk what went wrong. The offense. Really kind of the entire conversation of what went wrong in this ball game. Only 1 walk. Oh, they did end with 2 because of the 9th inning. Going into the 9th inning, they had 1 walk, 6 hits, and had struck out 11 times. They end the ball game with 10 base runners because of that 9th and 8th, I guess, to their credit. So they get 10 base runners and have 13 strikeouts. That's not the worst number in the world. But again, before the 9th inning and then the rain delay and whatever, it was 1 walk, 6 hits, and 11 strikeouts against a White Sox pitching staff that was opened by Paguero, who has an ERA of 5 after this outing, and Tyler Alexander, old friend. Love Tyler Alexander. No disrespect at all, okay? Tiger legend. But he now has a 4.27 ERA after 4 1/3 innings of shutout baseball. My point is it was in the high 4s going into the game. So Gleyber Torres, rough night. We don't say that too terribly often, but 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. Kerry Carpenter, 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts. Went fishing on a curveball way out in front. I think that ball might have bounced before home plate, and he still took a hack at it. So on the top of the lineup, not doing a whole heck of a lot. Andy Ibanez had a weird game where he got a hit off of a righty, which I'm not sure I've ever seen him do, obviously being facetious, but not something he does very often. And then in a big moment later in the ballgame with 2 runners on base, I want to say, and a lefty on the mound, he goes down swinging on a fastball up from Tyler Alexander. Not an overpowering fastball by any stretch. He also got picked off trying to steal in one of the most ridiculous stolen base attempts I've ever seen. Zach McKinstry, brutal night. 0 for 4, 3 strikeouts, left so many runners on base. I mean, had 2 on in the 9th inning. Obviously, the rain delay, that's kind of like not fair, but earlier in the ball game, had bases loaded and went down swinging. Just did not see the ball very well in this Monday night ball game. Now, I think that it's kind of interesting that he even got the nod at shortstop. I think that, I don't know, you could have put Javi at short and then maybe, I don't know, Winfield Perez in center, but that requires Kerry Carpenter to play the field. I'm not sure they're comfortable enough doing that consistently yet. I don't know, but I think that McKinstry, the reason I bring this up, if I can get my thoughts together, is that earlier in the season, Zach McKinstry was hitting so well that he was getting opportunities and starts against lefties. And while technically a lefty did not start this game, the bulk pitcher was a lefty. They just did the opener, right? So him getting a start, knowing that he wasn't going to face the righty because he's down in the lineup card, and then having a lefty that consistently, he looked completely overmatched by Tyler Alexander's stuff, which we know is not overwhelming and should not overpower an all-star in 2025. So I think we're just seeing him kind of fall back down to earth. His numbers since the all-star break have not been very good. He made a great defensive play in this game. I'm not saying he doesn't have value. He still does. But I think his usage might start looking a little bit more like it did the last 2 years, which is you're going to hit 8th or 9th when a righty is on the mound and play wherever we need you that night, as opposed to the 850 OPS he was rocking for the first 2.5 months of the season when you kind of had to get him into the lineup and hit him in the heart of the order. That's all. Okay, let's talk stuff. We'll do that right after this. Maybe. Okay, there we go. Got to talk to you all about our friends over at Game Day Hue. We love our friends over at Game Day Hue. And that is the hat that I always show off. Oh, I'm wearing red too. Look at that. Red Wings colors there for all you hockey fans. This one hits the mark. Game Day Hue makes clean, no logo gear with team-inspired colorways for every pro and college fan base. It's all about letting your colors speak for you. No giant logos, just smart, versatile style that works on game day, on the course, or anywhere in between. I love rocking these on the course. It's subtle, stylish, and I can still rep my team. The hat pairs perfectly with my usual gear. It doesn't replace my team's logo stuff. It just adds to the lineup. Worn mine to tailgates, tee times, outrunning errands. It doesn't matter, and I always get compliments. It is fantastic, and it's not just hats. Check out their split shade gloves made for the golf course or the perfect gift for a fan who already has everything. They're great gloves, by the way. I used them just last weekend golfing. So right now you can get 15% off with code MLB15 at GameDayHue.com. That's GameDayHue.com. The code even stacks on bundle deals. So now is the time to load up. Let your colors talk because colors speak louder than words. That's GameDayHue.com. Code MLB15. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate you all for tuning in as always. So we talked a little bit before the break there about Zach McKinstry's usage in the lineup. I want to talk about the lineup as a whole as we approach the stuff segment here. I thought the management of it was really fascinating, and the Tigers offense did not do particularly well. It wasn't terrible. Again, 10 base runners is not some awful level of production, but you'd like a little bit more than 2 runs against the pitchers that the White Sox were throwing out there. It was fascinating because you had the righty opener handing off to a lefty bulk reliever, and I thought there was a little bit of a mix in the lineup card of what AJ was looking for. So like Colt Keith, for instance, doesn't start this ball game knowing that a lefty bulk was coming in. However, he could have gotten an at-bat against a righty at the top of the ballgame and still played the first few innings in the field. Instead, Andy Ibanez starts against a righty to the point where he even gets an at-bat against a righty, then stays in for the bulk reliever. Colt Keith then finds his way onto the field later in the ballgame and still gets a couple of innings of work. Obviously, defensively, played most of the second or the last third of this ball game, and then obviously got an at-bat as well. And then Kerry Carpenter started a ball game. You'd look at it and you go, okay, he started against a righty, whatever. Again, lefty bulk reliever, stays in for the whole game. And I know there's a lot of people out there rejoicing over that. Despite the 0 for 4, his ugliest at-bat of the night was actually against a righty and not a lefty. I thought that he held his own. And like Tyler Alexander, if there is a lefty to... I feel like I'm bashing Tyler Alexander. I love Todd the Painter, okay? No disrespect. But I think that if there is a lefty that you feel kind of comfortable putting Carp out there against, A, you guarantee him an at-bat in the first inning against the opener, against a righty. And then B, you have a soft-tossing lefty. That's not going to overpower a Kerry Carpenter with high fastballs or anything like that. If he gets him out, it's going to have to be a little bit with finesse and with breaking balls low and away and whatnot. There's a lot of moving parts. Again, unfortunately, nobody really hit very well over the course of the game. But I thought that was fascinating, and I find that stuff just so interesting, and I wonder how that, I don't know, if we learned anything. And if going forward, maybe that's managed a little bit differently. Obviously, the rain was annoying. It's almost midnight for me because of that. Not that anybody cares. I love doing this, not a complaint, but we're already starting at 7:40 p.m. and then we have a rain delay. And then I'm not going to lie, I laughed. I did. I let out an audible laugh when we take that huge rain delay. And then Zach McKinstry goes up into the batter's box, one pitch, doesn't even swing at it, and the inning's over. And it's just, we waited all that for the most anticlimactic at-bat or pitch, I guess, you could have possibly imagined. So, yeah, not the prettiest game in the world, but we will take it. MLB Pipeline updated their top 30 prospects. This is something we can go a lot more in depth on in the offseason when they release their end of season prospect rankings. But this is their midseason. They do, post-draft. And once all the draftees are kind of established and playing where they're going to play the rest of the season, Kevin McGonigal, the number 1 prospect in the organization and the number 2 prospect in baseball, according to MLB Pipeline. Max Clark, top 10 prospect in all of baseball, comes in at number 9 and is number 2 in the Tigers system. Jose Briseño, 3 in the Tigers system, number 32 in all of baseball. And then Bryce Rayner, out for the season, unfortunately, but the number 4 prospect and the number 35 prospect in all of baseball. Thyron Lorenzo does fall out of the top 100, which I don't necessarily disagree with. I'm not hating on Lorenzo. I think that there's still a really solid chance that he's a valuable asset for this team going forward, and I'm excited about what he could become. But I think that the ceiling has probably lowered a little bit from the hype that was surrounding him post Flaherty trade last year on maybe the heights that he is projected to reach. I think he's probably more sliding in as a valuable, again, can hit either handedness on the mound, catcher behind the backstop. Got to work on his defense a little bit more still, but I like what I've seen from him, but I am not super mad about him falling out of the top 100. The rest of the Tigers list, I'm not going to go over all 30. You can look at MLB Pipeline is free. That's why I reference it a lot, because it's accessible to everybody. It's just MLB's, MLB.com's official prospect rankings. Troy Melton at number 6, I love. Absolutely love. Then you have Hao Yu Lee at 7, Chris Rodriguez at 8, which I also love. He's been raking down in the very, very lower levels of the minor leagues. You have Yost coming in at number 9, the Tigers' first-round pick from this season. Max Anderson climbs all the way to number 10, a top 10 prospect in the organization, notoriously a guy that the Tigers held on to at the deadline and was actually, I think just on Sunday or Monday, promoted to AAA as well. So that'll be a cool guy to kind of watch the rest of this season. And then going into spring training next year, Jaden Ham falls to 11. That doesn't surprise me too much either. I think he's kind of plateaued in his development a little bit more. At number 12, we have Malachi Witherspoon, another higher draft pick from the Tigers draft class just this year. then at number 13, one of my favorite players in the entire Tigers organization, Frangerber Montilla, getting some love still as well. So again, I picked an arbitrary number, the top 13. There's a lot of cool guys we can go over. Maybe we can go over all of them, just do like a prospect update on an off day. Maybe we can get the Tigers minor league report guys back on, just go over their rankings are fantastic too, top 40 or whatever number they pick. So we'll have a lot more time to break those down a lot more in depth than I just did. But I think that just, where they rank is worth at least relaying on the show. Let's go win a series. Let's go win against a bad White Sox team. Set yourself up where you are in a position to get a sweep going into Wednesday. Okay, you have Jack Flaherty on the mound looking for a bounce back outing, and then TBD for the White Sox. We'll see what they do, whether they and they could do anything. They could call somebody up that we've never heard of. They could do opener and bulk reliever again. They could just throw out one of their starters, one of their long relievers, whatever. We'll see. They're in a the asset that you have more than any other team when you are bad. And the Tigers were in this position a lot over the last 10 years. So I say this from a point of experience, not from, like trying to look down on another organization. But the one thing you have to your advantage when you're that bad is you have playing time. That is an asset. That is a real asset that general managers and president of baseball operations and front offices value and take into consideration when they're building their roster and choosing, promotions and demotions and, again, playing time, etc. Playing time is a resource and an asset, and they have that. So we could see anybody, whoever it is, go get a win. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We, of course, will be back tomorrow. I appreciate you all greatly. I think that's it. I felt a little scatterbrained in this episode. So if I was kind of all over the place or took a while to get my thoughts out, I apologize. I feel like I was like just half a step kind of behind. So back at it tomorrow. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch y'all then, baby. Go Tigers.